3, 2, 1. What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from Hear the Spirit, presented to you by NoleGameday.com. We're here live on a wonderful, fantastic Wednesday evening, and we are back after, once again, another Florida State loss. We had our instant reaction on Saturday afternoon. Me and VZ took care of business there, recapping a little bit from Florida State's loss to North Carolina, 35-11. Dustin wasn't there with us in the instant reaction, but he was there in attendance. We're going to get his thoughts from him. We're going to talk about Mack Brown's comments about being embarrassed by beating FSU. We're going to talk also some Mike Norvell stuff here. He actually commented on if he thinks the team is quitting on him. He also commented on the plan moving forward and trying to figure it out by the end of this season so he can prepare for 2025. I thought he gave some strong remarks there, and we'll jump into those. We're going to talk some NFL Noles Week 9, some young guys in the league, also some veterans standing out this past weekend. And then also we're going to jump into a short and sweet game preview for Florida State going on the road to number 10, Notre Dame. We're going to give our preview to that and also our best bets along with score predictions. And then we're going to jump into a little bit of a quick recap on Florida State basketball with VZ. He's back in the game, baby. VZ's back. And Leonard Hamilton, 1-0. So with me this evening is Austin VZ, our lead basketball writer and football guru. And then down below is Dustin Lewis, our editor-in-chief. Gentlemen, how we doing?
It's been a week, but, 3 games to go for Florida State. Now you're sitting with a 5-game losing streak, the longest for the Seminoles in 49 years. And, if you look at the 10 years of some of the other coaches that have come through Tallahassee in that time, Willie Taggart, Jimbo Fisher, Bobby Bowden, obviously, most they ever lost in a row was 3 games. So, this has been a dreadful stretch for Florida State, obviously. Don't really have much hope that it gets turned around on Saturday night. But, hey, at least we have a basketball win to talk about this week. And now Leonard Hamilton, 1 game, already has as many wins as FSU football.
Yeah, football wishes they could be 1-0.
Yeah. How you feeling though? You're 1-0, VZ.
Good.
Feel like a new man.
I'm just glad basketball season's back. I don't have to suffer through these podcasts only talking football. I can look forward to talking a little bit of basketball. And you can bet I will be watching Florida State basketball Saturday night instead of watching this horrific football team.
Well, he's gonna have to watch a little bit of it because he's gonna come on to our instant reaction.
Yeah, but maybe I just box score watch because it's gonna be the same story. No matter what, it's the same story. The offensive line stinks, the play calling stinks, the defense isn't good enough, and Notre Dame's gonna run all over Florida State.
Come on,
it's the same thing every week.
Come on, there could be some third stringers that step up, show some fight, some pride. You never know what could happen. There could be some Trevor Jackson. I don't think we're talking enough about that. Could see QB4 in there. Could
Great.
Be the heir apparent to Jordan Travis. I'm just trying to keep the traffic going on the website and get the viewership on YouTube going. But let's go and get going, gentlemen. As always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time we release a new video and when we do go live, along with a lot of our press conference stuff and player interviews after practices. Let's jump into it. Dustin, you were there. Didn't get to get your take on this game, but like I said earlier, 35-11. We all three predicted Florida State to lose this game, but I think a lot of people in the fan base, along with VZ and I, even though we've seen throughout the season some ugly losses, this one, I think you could see a little bit of quit from this team, and that was something that I was a little worried about after that Miami loss, that, what is there to kind of fight for now? But the bad thing is it seems like it might have infected into some of the younger players, D-Lou.
Yeah, it was a really tough game for Florida State and, extremely disappointing considering the circumstances going into this one. And now you've got Florida State finishing with its worst ACC record in program history. The 35-11 loss ties the largest home loss for Mike Norvell in Tallahassee. That one to North Carolina State back in 2020. So, it was rough. I think, like you said, probably when you're considering all things, the worst game for FSU this season with the way it went on the field. And, there were some signs of quit and guys just starting to give up in that second half and kind of accepting the result. I thought we saw that with North Carolina, just continuing to pound the ball on the ground throughout that game. And, Florida State, they force a 3-and-out. They're able to get that goal line stand on the second drive. And from there, the Tar Heels really asserted what they wanted to do on the ground. And Amarian Hampton, he was excellent in this football game, scoring 5 touchdowns. But, you saw a lot of the time whenever he was able to get past the second level of the defense and get into the secondary, those guys, they didn't really look like they wanted to tackle one of those long touchdown runs. You have Quindarius Jones coming in there, just throwing a shoulder into him, and Shyheim Brown not making a great effort on the play, frankly, in my opinion. So the defense, I don't know if they're kind of getting caught up in what the offense was doing, because it was the same old story on that side of the football. But it was disappointing to see, because you think back to a couple weeks ago, there were some positive signs from the defense in that loss to Duke. But with what's happened these past 2 weeks, it's starting to look like a fluke. And Florida State's defense getting diced up on third down, and it's not 3rd and 1s. It's 3rd and 7 and plus. And, a lot of the times it's over 3rd and 10, these 3rd and longs. And, we saw Miami do it as well, but you've got one of the worst third down defenses in the country. Can't force a turnover to save their lives, not creating a ton of tackles for loss or anything in the pass rush. And, it's been a tough product to watch.
That's what I was talking with VZ about, that third down defense. It was ugly. And it really showed its true colors in this game against UNC, against a third-string quarterback. I know he's had some playing time, more playing time throughout the season, but that's still a third-string quarterback, D-Lou. And, the third down, you got guys cushioned off by 7-8 yards whenever it's a 3rd and 4, and that they're going to run it. They can run an easy slant in and gives an easy connection there for a first down. It's just like questionable things that we've seen all throughout Adam Fuller's defense during his tenure here. And yes, there's been bright spots, but then you look into just where they're at on the field in some game and scenarios, and you're like, why? How is this possible? And why should it be possible? And that's where, the discussion of what you do in this offseason regarding the defensive side of the ball and Adam Fuller and whatever you do with the rest of your assistants, that conversation continues to grow, because it's not just offensively. To me, there's plenty of question marks on that defensive side of the ball as we head into the rest of the season into 2025.
And I do wonder how much of that is because of how bad the offense is. Obviously the defense is having to be on the field a lot, and they're being put on the field sometimes in these short field to go, and the other offense is already in a pretty good position to potentially put together a scoring drive. But at the same time, the players you're putting out there, the ones that you expected to be some of those standouts this season, they're just not producing. I know Darrell Jackson, he's played a little bit better over the past couple of weeks, but his performance throughout the year probably hasn't been up to the standard of what FSU and what college football thought it would be going into this year. And, you look at Patrick Payton, he's played 108 snaps on defense the last 2 weeks against Miami and North Carolina, 2 teams that ran the ball, I don't know, certainly about a combined 60 times, if not more than that, in the last 8 quarters. And he's got 1 assisted tackle to his name. So, for someone who, before the year, we were talking about potentially being in that next line of the Jermaine Johnsons and the Jared Verses, that hasn't happened. A lot of these guys that Florida State had high expectations for, they haven't risen to the occasion.
No, that stat right there is scary to think of, because you already told us a bad one, I think, last week before going into this last game against North Carolina. And there's some of those veterans, some of those guys that Mike Norvell talks so highly of this past offseason, in the spring, into that fall camp, and then leading into that first game against Georgia Tech, and bringing those guys to Charlotte for ACC kickoff. A lot of that reliability is not there from what was supposed to be your star players and veterans. And that just goes to show how badly this team was evaluated. And, that's something that Mike Norvell is having to eat now in these press conferences, talking to the media, that he just is not, this whole entire staff did a really bad job evaluating guys. And they had found tons of success previously with doing the right thing and evaluating this team. That's something that I thought that Mike Norvell was doing very well, and it wasn't evaluating the personnel, the talent that you were looking into the transfer portal, recruiting wise, if you can land them, but more importantly, in the transfer portal and what you already had on the field and putting them in the right place at the right time. And that's something that has completely backfired this season. And that's just saying it nicely. It's something that we have never seen before. But it goes more than that because there is talent on that field. And so that's where, I question Mike Norvell and wonder what in the world has gone on for him,
Yeah, I mean, there's talent on the field, but it just seems like they've all regressed. Even when we saw DJ Lundy out there before he was ruled out for the season, it wasn't up to what we had seen the last 2 years. And I feel like Shaheem Brown has certainly taken a step back. He might have more total tackles to his name, but as far as his overall impact on the field, it's fallen off. And
I've got one, Darius Washington.
well, I was mainly talking defense, but I mean, yeah, offense. Which one hasn't regressed as far as guys who have come back? I mean, it's awful over there. But guys that you expected to lead you on the defensive side of the ball, AZ, he's having a quietly solid season. But a lot of your other guys, we talked about Patrick Payton, Joshua Farmer, he's been impactful at times, but again, it's just not consistent enough to probably what you were expecting. It's tough to kind of pinpoint why you're having these regressions on both sides of the ball with guys who were all conference players and potentially NFL draft selections.
Yeah, it's very surprising to us and the rest of the Florida State fan base. It's also shocking to Mack Brown, I think, and you could sort of see this in the game as well. Me and VZ were talking about it. It felt like once that last interception was thrown in the game, North Carolina picked it off and just was like ready to get out of here. There was not really much celebrating. It was like, hey, okay, I got the ball. Can this game hurry up and get out of here? What were the vibes like in the game, Dustin, to you before I get over to this Mack Brown quote? Like what? I mean, at least, it's the ACC network. It's brutal enough having to watch anything on the ACC network. Like it just makes you want to blow my head off watching it. But I heard the cheerleaders more than anything on the broadcast, Dustin. It didn't sound like a lively Doak Campbell Stadium. I heard, my dad was there about 75%, maybe 80% full. But I don't blame it for it being that way, though, whenever nothing interesting is happening from the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I posted a video of what the crowd looked like 7 minutes before kickoff, and I got a lot of pushback for whatever reason. But like you said, it probably got to about 85% full by the time the game kicked off and got started. But, as things went on and we saw it quickly diminish there in the second quarter, Florida State, they had the lead at the end of the first quarter. And then quickly it was 14-3 for North Carolina, and there was no looking back. So, at halftime, it seemed like a good portion of the students, which that section already wasn't full to begin the game, they kind of just started to head out. And, as that third quarter waned and you started to get there towards the fourth quarter, there were only a couple thousand people left to subject themselves to that miserable product. It was flat out hard to watch. And, there were some boos, throughout that game for Florida State on the first offensive drive. And yeah, it was really tough. And fan support seems like it's starting to kind of diminish at this point. Well, it is diminishing. And
I'm going to say starting to.
What surprised me the most is, we wrap up these press conferences with Mike Norvell. We get to speak to a couple players after the game. And typically when we walk out of the doors of the Moore Center, they've got fences set up. There's a couple security guards out there, probably 100 or so fans all like crowding around, hoping a player walks out and they're able to get an autograph or a picture. And I swear, this game, it was a 3:30 game. It ended at 7. We wrapped up the press conference duties before 8 o'clock. We walk out those doors. There's not a soul there. And that was the thing that made me go like, wow, we're not in good territory at the moment.
No, as a program, overall, everywhere, every inch of the program right now is in some trouble. But yeah, I know what you mean. Whenever you're outside the Moore, I'm sure all the fans listening, I'm sure a lot of you have waited out there outside the Moore waiting for some players to come out, coaches, whoever, and to, get a photo, get an autograph. But to have no one out there, it's very grim. It's very dark and gray, and that's what sucks about it. But we could definitely tell from watching it, Dustin, it's just no life, and it's really hard to watch. It's hard to watch. It's not fun. It's
I tell you what,
that's a depressing fact. It's like a depressing thing to do at this point right now.
I'm very curious to see, because Florida State more than likely is going to lose its 6th straight game this weekend and drop to 1-9. And then they're coming back to Tallahassee for their second to last game of the season against Charleston Southern. I'm really wondering what that crowd is going to look like at the moment.
BZ, do you want to give a prediction for that one for us?
No, I listened to your post podcast.
Yeah, they can't debut the blue uniforms or the turquoise jerseys in that game. They just can't. There's going to be 50 people in the crowd. It's going to be a 1-score game against an FCS opponent, and it's going to be miserable. Save them for next year. Just save them for next year.
It'd be funny if they did, though.
Oh, they're going to, because they probably already planned to, like before the season, and they've probably made all these preparations with the Seminole Tribe of Florida, bringing representatives and things like that.
And they got added to the video game, and you're seeing all these recruits take pictures in them. Just seems like a matter of time.
I'm sure there's been a lot of marketing things that they've put together this entire offseason to do a lot of things. I mean, they can't really post any social media. They haven't been able to do anything YouTube-wise. The Klein videos are gone.
No one wants to watch these cinematic recaps.
Yeah, I mean, when did they stop? They stopped after they stopped at the Boston College game, and they got one out after their win against Cal. But
Leo quit, so I mean,
I would say, is the camera crew even on the sidelines anymore? Are they on the team sidelines anymore? I haven't noticed them. Granted, I'm not looking for them, but I haven't noticed them.
They have been. I mean, they've been recording the footage, but from what I understand, they made the decision not to go through all that trouble after these losses. And, obviously, whenever they put the Georgia Tech one out and stuff, they were already getting some, and, the Orange Bowl game last year, they're already getting some negative feedback there. But yeah, Leo no longer works with the team. So, I mean, they do have some other guys around. I don't know them all by name, but I'm interested to kind of see where the direction of that goes from here.
For some context, Leo is one of the managing video producers, editors, filmers, everything involved there on the.
I think he was the head of creative.
Yeah, which is a big deal for sure. So, yeah, I don't know, but let's jump over to what Mack Brown said after the game. He got his first win. He got his first win beating Florida State. I said he was embarrassed. He says, I'm embarrassed. I never did. It's kind of embarrassing. They gave me the game ball, and I thought, well, I had never gotten a game ball because I had lost so many games. It's kind of like when people say, you don't win at Virginia much. This isn't about me. It's not about me. Nobody else was beating Florida State when I was back here either. So anybody that was truthful about that, we were playing the NFL East because that's what Florida State was like. So the fact that we didn't beat them, we were always closer. We were always second. We were always closer to beating them than anyone else, but they were really good. Mack Brown said.
Well, what about the years when Florida State was bad and you still lost to them, just a few years ago? What are the excuses for that? Come on, Mack Brown. I see right through your lies.
We don't talk about that.
No.
But I mean, he seems like a pretty respectful guy. And, honestly, it was funny pregame. Robert pointed out from the press box, but Mike Norvell and they were talking pregame, and Mack Brown walked over and just like put both of his arms on Mike Norvell's shoulder and kind of looked like he was giving him a little bit of a pep talk or something. And, Mack Brown, he's had some tough times throughout his coaching tenure, and obviously, was fired by Texas a while back. So, maybe giving a little bit of advice to Norvell, in this tough time, and a veteran coach kind of helping out a younger coach in a really tough moment, and someone who obviously has ties and is an alum to Florida State. So I'm sure Mack Brown, outside of when he plays FSU, he wants to see the Seminoles do well. And he talked about it before the game, coming back to Tallahassee and get to see some of his old friends and stuff like that. So he's got fond memories of his time at Florida State, and it's just disappointing to see Mike Norvell give another coach their first win against FSU.
How long was that conversation? Because this was pregame, and then they also had a pretty lengthy one.
Oh, there it
postgame
is
as well. Yep, both hands on the shoulders of Mike.
I'd say at least 3 to 5 minutes. I mean, they were chatting for a little bit for sure.
Yeah, no, I think Mack Brown's good.
I was also eating my sandwich, so I didn't watch the entire
Shocking
interaction. But
no shocker there. No shocker there. But yeah, and I thought that was pretty interesting to see that the pregame and giving him some tidbits and maybe some insight on what to do and what not to do, because North Carolina, they've had some potential. They've had some quarterbacks come through for them as well, but haven't been able to reach where they should maybe be expected at times. But maybe Mack's given him some knowledge that Mike could use for sure. But you can tell, Mack Brown cares about Tallahassee. He also commented on Bobby Bowden as well. He said, I do think Coach Bowden was a dear friend. I should have mentioned him on Monday. I think he's in heaven tonight with a smile on his face. Even though Florida State lost, he knows that I love him and I love this place. They've been really good to me, and it is good to come here and get a win. So, yeah, congratulations.
Mack Brown, team advisor when he leaves.
Maybe if he wants to come into Tallytown. There's going to be a lot of open slots available. A lot of open slots. Let's jump over to a quote from Mike Norvell after the game, which I thought was pretty interesting, which is a good question from the media asking about the team and if he thinks that if there's been any quit. He said, I don't think that they quit. I do think that the confidence was ... stop. He stopped talking and he said, I thought they got caught up in some of the negative things that happened. It's obviously disappointing. Like I said, that was one thing I was most disappointed in, was just seeing that. So practically he just admitted, yes, he did think his team quit in front of him on the sidelines. That's right there what was proclaimed from him, even though trying to negate it at the very beginning. But yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier. We saw this team start to show some quit a little bit, and maybe even if it's not just not making a play here and there, just the effort wise and just the mistakes here and there, it all adds up. And it just depends on how you define quit, but it showed and quite a bit of different ways in this North Carolina loss.
It wasn't a good look, but at the same time, Mike Norvell, as we've talked about before, he's not one of those coaches to take a shot at his players through the media. And honestly, for the most part, I don't think you're going to hear any college football coach or any NFL coach, say that their team quit.
Brian Kelly excluded.
So it's a pretty damning statement, and it's not a direction that a lot of coaches are going to take publicly. Now, privately, I'm sure those issues are being addressed, but again, I mean, when the season has gone this way, and a lot of those guys on your two deep who are seniors or guys who think that they could go to the league or something like that, who might not be here after December, I just don't know how hard those messages can hit home at this point.
No, you just don't want to see it continue. But like we've been talking about, there's only a few games left on this schedule. There's not many, and this one coming up on Saturday night, it's against a team that's very, very good, and it's going to be a true test to see who wants to be out there on that field. But if there is that case of, hey, this player out here, it's easy to show they're not wanting to make plays, they don't even want to make simple tackles, definitely if it's from some of your veterans, get off the field. I would like to see Mike Norvell be disciplined on that front, and see change happen from Mike, because something that we've seen a little bit of a different side of Mike this year that I haven't been a fan of, that I really liked when he came into this program, showing that force. And hey, if you aren't going to make these kind of changes, just like what we saw a couple years back whenever Deuce Spann had his mistakes on the sideline, yes, we're conversating, things get a little animated at first, but we are going to have a conversation, and then he likely will give you a chance to respond. But if it just continues on a week-to-week basis, or continues to happen repetitively through a game itself, let's have a choice of you're either going to be on the field or you're not going to be on the field, because someone else behind you most certainly has a better I just think a better opportunity of first off playing better because they want to be out there on the field, but deserves it in their own right as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got a lot of these young players, who are wanting to get more opportunities. And I look back to KJ Sampson in that Miami loss a couple weeks ago, 6 tackles in 17 snaps. And obviously Juice Cryer was injured. You're kind of thinning out there in the linebacker room, but Omar Graham Jr., I feel like he's played pretty well for the most part the last 2 weeks. No Blake Nicholson, dealing with that hand injury, but I feel like you've got to continue to invest in him. And we saw Fentrell Cypress. He wasn't able to play, exited the game with an injury after 11 defensive snaps, according to Adam Fuller on Monday. You had Jabril Rawls and Quindarius getting more opportunities, and some up and down in there. But at the same time, these are the guys who could be the future. And with everything that you wanted to accomplish out of the window, now's the time to sow those seeds and, really invest here in these final 3 games. Because, even if Florida State, if they lose these final 3 games, that experience is going to be vital for these guys moving forward. And same thing for on the offensive side of the ball when you look at Luke Kromenhoek, obviously, and Brockland as well. And then the offensive line, Andre Otto, Jalen Early, like the guys who are going to be here, the wide receivers, obviously the trio, the true freshmen. We see it on the depth chart for the tight ends this week. Landon Thomas and Amari Williams, the only players listed there for FSU. So it's happening in some facets, but you're at a point where it should happen in every facet.
Mm-hmm. There's also a strong quote here, I think, from Mike Norvell, at least to me, on a question regarding figuring it out before the season ends. So trying to find some positives, some improvements, some simple improvements before the end of the season to get yourself prepared for 2025. He says, I absolutely believe in it. I've lived it. I've been through it. I've seen the highs and the lows in the game of football and hell and the game of life, just to be honest with you. I know and believe in what can be done, how it can be done. I don't need a motivational speech or even an encouraging word. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I know what it needs to look like. I know how you need to work. I know how you need to apply these lessons that are learned. And I damn sure know that I can do that. And I know that I can put together a team and a group that absolutely can respond to that. And we have not done a good enough job of doing that. And I do believe in those players in there regarding the locker room, since this was a post-game presser. So when you watch the video, and you can go back and watch this presser if you want to, but this was pretty strong comments from him, just in the way that he was speaking back to the media member that asked that question, and kind of gave you a little bit of a sense that Mike isn't just cutting out the noise and cutting out what he's hearing and everything. He's certainly hearing that. He understands the situation at which Florida State is at, but to understand, hey, things got to change, and it's definitely leaning into already trying to get yourself prepared for 2025. But he's been through the climb before, and I'm just wondering, though, to me, is he eligible to do another climb after the season that he put himself through last year with getting that undefeated regular season record, getting, in quote, that college football playoff snub? Is he eligible to be able to do another 5-year climb? That's where I don't think so. And it shouldn't be that way. We'll talk later on after the season ends on what we should expect for this program to be at moving into 2025, and what a record you would like to see as a fan, what it should be. But this shouldn't, to me, be, hey, we get to do this again. We're going to do another climb here, and you get another 3 or 4 years to do that. That's where things get interesting to me on, as he evaluating that? Is he evaluating that in itself? And I'm sure, Alfred and the rest of the admin too are having those conversations as well as, hey, this isn't just like, hey, we're gonna do another one of these things again. You brought in your team. We've kept your staff here for this long. There's got to be already preparations for 2025 because there's no improvement on a week-to-week basis. This is all shot. It's time to get ready for this next season ahead.
Well, look, there's no time for another rebuild in Tallahassee. I mean, this has got to be a 1-2 year max sort of flip for FSU, especially with the amount of money that you've invested into that contract extension for Mike Norvell, the money that's been invested in the coaching staff, which now you're going to need even more money when it comes to firing some of these coaches who a lot of them just received extensions after the 2023 season. So you've got some money that you're going to have to burn there. And then obviously the cost to hire other coaches to join Mike Norvell's staff. And, that number is TBD. But, I feel like personally at Florida State, if they're not around at least that 8-win mark or so in 2025, I mean, that does start to call into the question of, potentially Mike Norvell's status in Tallahassee. I just don't think it's going to be acceptable, right now with where the direction this program is going and, the transfer portal and the early signing period, just a couple weeks away from that. Florida State, they don't have a lot of momentum on those fronts. You're going to be replacing coaches during that time as well. The next, 4 to 8 weeks, I mean, it's one of the most important times in Florida State's program history, I believe. They've got to make some really big moves, some that are going to be tough to make and others that they're going to have to make for the best interest of Florida State football.
And I think there needs to even be some changes outside of that. Like we were just talking about the climb, the entire message has to change. This isn't a climb anymore. This has to be a new message. Maybe it's getting to stay in the locker room. Who knows what's happening? But there has to be so many different changes within the way this football team operates, whether it's getting a new play caller, whether it's getting different recruiting coordinators. There's got to be so many different things that happen just to even get bowl eligible next season, because that's how far off this program has fallen in 10 months. And it's insane to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, this program, the one thing that this program cannot let itself get used to is that we've got to at least get to a bowl game. That should never be the case. And I think Mike knows that. But the thing is that this hole has been dug so damn deep that, we as people that cover this team, it's shocking in so many different regards. Like whenever you're trying to preview a game, which we're about to do here against Notre Dame, you look at the stats for where Florida State's ranked in these team rankings, and it's like, I mean, you're below UMass. You're below UMass. You're down there with some really, really, really shitty teams, like the shittiest of shit. And like that's where Florida State, the name of Florida State, is at, and that just should never, ever, ever be the case. But I just don't really know. We do know, and we'll have conversations about this once the season has ended and look into a lot of different things. But the factor of where this team has gone to, and I was saying it to VZ and Instant Reaction, it is extremely impressive of how awful this team was able to turn into after what you saw the previous year. It's actually extremely impressive how this has been able to go down under Mike Norvell. But that's also the scariest thing. That's by far the scariest thing that makes you nervous as a fan going into 2025. And if that just continues, like even if he were, okay, let's say 2025, you start to see, here we go, a climb back and you reach that 9 win plus mark. Who knows if this could happen again? That's what, and at the end of the day, you could bring in these assistants, you can bring in these coaching staff guys, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, it's the guy at the top of the helm. And those guys that you had on your staff last year, they brought in those 13 wins. And I need to also, too, put in a lot of those players like Jordan Travis and Jared Verse, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, list goes on, Jarian Jones, Renardo Green. Like a lot of those guys helped enormously put that undefeated regular season record together. But that's the scary part. You just don't know if that could happen again under Mike Norvell.
Yeah, it's like, is it a 1-year fluke? Like, did everything just go wrong for Florida State this year? Or did they kind of set themselves up for this through the, struggles in high school recruiting, not landing a ton of proven transfers this past cycle in December? And then, also losing some quality guys in their own program to the transfer portal as well. But like you said, Logan, I think the scariest part of it is you didn't make a single change on your on-field coaching staff. You had some guys, some off-field guys in the building, a couple GAs and things like that go to other places. But that shouldn't affect the total operation, that we've seen this year. From the top down, I don't know that there's one position group that has improved, from last year and even throughout the season. It's hard to point at different things and say, well, this has gotten better and, this is showing you some positive signs, so maybe that's something you can build off of. There's just not a whole lot of that. And, it's definitely a reflection on Florida State's coaching staff. And that's why, major changes are going to be made in Tallahassee this offseason. They've got to be. I think Florida State, they've got to at least, I think 4+. And that's kind of putting it generous at this point because you've given some guys on that staff probably longer leashes than you needed to. And, Florida State, you had a chance last year maybe to upgrade when you had momentum around the country coming off a 13-1 season and a 10-win season before that. And you chose not to do that. Now, when you're in a really tough pickle, I'm just wondering when they make these changes, what are the coaching prospects out there to replace these guys who are going to be headed out of Tallahassee? So it's a twofold kind of question.
Mm-hmm. Loyalty can kill you at times. It's got some good, and man, it can show. It's got some bad as well, as we're seeing in this 2024 FSU football team. Tell you what's some good though is some of these NFL Noles that are showing out. This is this is the most fun segment that we have every week now that we get to look forward to, is looking at some of these guys that are out there performing very well in the league. Let's start off over there, West Coast. The Verse and Fisk show, it's officially stamped itself over there for Sean McVay. Let's look at some stats real quick, though. If you guys haven't yet, I suggest if there's a Rams game on and you can watch it, put it on. It's a fun game to watch when these two are in there. You just get the signs of what you had with these two in Tallahassee when they were playing on the same line together. But Jared Verse, 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 1 sack. Starting to heat up in that sack number, starting to get up there a little bit. And then Braden Fisk have a day. He had 2 sacks, 4 total tackles, and 6 quarterback pressures, and also got the game ball from Sean McVay afterward. But these two are an absolute menace. And, Sean McVay, you lose Aaron Donald, but they're coming in. And it does take 2 to replace a guy like Aaron Donald. But I think, though, a lot of these offenses, they're going to learn you can't put a tight end. You can't put 2 tight ends. You can't put just a one-on-one kind of situation with a bigger offensive tackle on Jared Verse. You're going to have to stack up a little bit. And nonetheless, so they have a whole stacked and loaded defensive line and all in itself anyways, and it allows these two to eat. But hello, Braden Fisk and Jared Verse in L.A.
They are really fun to watch, and it's obviously been the same thing since they were in Tallahassee, and you reach that high point with the games that those two had in the ACC championship victory against Louisville, and you're starting to see them get back to that point now in the NFL. There were some flashes early in the year, but it feels like both of them are finding their footing a little bit more. They've got their feet wet, and they've been making plays. Sunday in, Sunday out, and we're only at the middle of the year here, so I saw Jared Verse leading the NFL in pressures among rookies, and I would imagine that's just going to continue from here. And like you said, starting to get home on more of those sacks. You could have a Defensive Rookie Player of the Year award sitting there for Jared Verse in a couple more months if he keeps this up. And Braden Fisk, going to have a chance to be on that all-rookie team and earning some honors for himself as well.
Yeah, none of us are surprised by it either. Especially not Sean McVay, who's such a firm believer that if they get Fisk in that building with Jared Verse, that they're just going to continue to cause havoc next to each other. That's exactly what they've done, and it's been a lot of fun to watch, even if it's been against my team for one of those weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Blame the tight ends.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, Sean McVay. That's one thing about him. He knows how to evaluate talent, and I think he's one of my favorite coaches in the league. But just too in this game, this is how they won against Geno Smith and Seattle. Them making those stops and making those plays because they're at the end having the walk off Hail Mary from Stafford into the end zone. You know that was a good win there for the Rams. Trey Benson got his first touchdown. He had a total of 55 yards on the day, but got a rushing touchdown against the Chicago Bears. They came away with a win there in Arizona. But yeah, shout out to Trey Benson. Josh Sweat, too, staying on the defensive end side of things against Jacksonville. He actually got home twice, got 2 sacks. He had a pass defended and 5 total tackles. I was watching this game quite a bit, just seeing Tua come back, but thought it'd be a good one overall. It was one of the closest games of the day, but the Bills and the Miami Dolphins, Jalen Ramsey came away with an interception in coverage on Keon Coleman there. Keon Coleman dropped it, got deflected up in the air, and Jalen Ramsey came away with it.
Nole on Nole crime.
Nole on Nole crime, baby.
And I believe is that the first interception Josh Allen's thrown all year, too?
I believe so. Yes, I do
Crazy.
believe so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course it's Jalen Ramsey, right? And then we haven't talked about him really that much this year, but I mean it's always worth it to talk about him. Derwin James, I mean he's having a year as well. That Chargers defense is becoming a menace, one of the top in the league for Harbaugh. But they faced against guess who? Jameis Winston almost picked off Jameis Winston. I was watching that game. Almost got the interception against Jameis Winston because Jameis was flying some things out there and didn't have the greatest of games. It was you're going to have the good and then you're going to have the bad with Jameis. That's kind of just how it's going to be with him, and that's the entertainment factor with him. But he had 7 total tackles and 2 passes defended. One of those where it was almost picked off. But yeah, Derwin James is Derwin James, and it seems like with that Chargers defense, I think this Chargers team, I don't know how far they'll go this year, but years ahead, they're going to be damn good.
Yeah, it wasn't a good week for Jameis, unfortunately, with those 3 picks. And yeah, I think Jarian Jones probably also in the low lights around the NFL this week because he was a part of that play where Saquon Barkley pulled off that incredible hurdle in Philadelphia's close win over Jacksonville. I mean, just an extremely athletic play. And my favorite part of it is seeing the sideline reaction from Philadelphia, because you think these guys are professional football players, but after that, like they were all freaking out, every single guy over there. So it's just cool to like see some stuff like that. But yeah, unfortunate for Jarian in that moment.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was like, oh no, Jarian, you got mixed up in that. Oopsies. But hey, it's going to go viral for a while, and I guess he's going to see him out there on all the clips going out. But yeah, that was crazy from Saquon Barkley. He's a freak of nature, and yeah, Philadelphia and that offensive line, they're just going to eat there for the rest of the season. All right, let's jump into this game preview.
Well, I've got a couple other NFL guys to talk
more?
about. Couple other guys. Cam Akers had some good moments with the Vikings. Didn't have very many carries. I think he only had 6 or 7, but almost had 50 yards for the game. And then I don't know if you guys have realized, Renardo Green is making himself a name over there in San Francisco. One of the 10 best corners in football right now, according to PFF. Jalen Ramsey's number 2. Renardo's at number 7. DBU starting to come back?
Mm-hmm. Hey, I love me some Renardo, baby. I was seeing a lot of the 49. So there's a 49er site on our Sports Illustrated network, and they do a great job under Grant Cohn and them covering the team, and they feel very high on Renardo, and they wanted to see him get some playing time earlier in this season. But with injuries, they had no choice to put him out there. And in that first game that he was starting, got the interception, and he's just only since then, the more experience, the better that he's gotten. So shout out to Renardo Green. Lockdown, Loco Ocho. Love me some NATO. But yeah, I think that's everyone. I'm trying to think of anyone It's Keon Coleman's injured right now. I know we put an article out on that earlier today, but we'll monitor that. Doesn't seem to be too severe, but we'll see if he's going to be available this upcoming weekend. All right, Florida State versus number 10, Notre Dame, gentlemen. Who's ready? Who's excited?
Florida State
kickoff. 7:30 kickoff, NBC. Get a late night one, prime time to see a.
Yeah, 30 minutes after the basketball game starts.
So I'll be watching the basketball game, at least for the first half of this football game. I can tell you that.
I thought you said you had 2 laptops. I thought you'd have that other one.
Yeah, I mean, if we have a screen open for it, I'll be at a friend's house. If he's willing to let me have one of his TVs for Florida State football suffering, then yeah, we'll make that manage.
You don't want to get a virus though on his laptop though. You don't want to get a virus on there, so you might not want.
Yeah, we'll see.
You don't want that. Yeah, I mean, here we are. I mean, I don't know if anybody watched it as an FSU fan. I didn't give a damn, and I never really do unless Florida State's in it. But the college football playoff rankings came out, and so Notre Dame's now ranked at number 10, previously ranked at number 8 by the AP poll. And here we are. I mean, just going off some of the stats that I found, and these are going to probably be the same way for the rest of the season. Notre Dame averages 36.6 points per game. That's number 17 in the country. FSU is second worst in the country at points per game. So there's that. And then Notre Dame is averaging 216 rushing yards per game. That's number 10 in the country for the Irish. And Florida State's defense allows 191 yards per game, which is ranked 107th in the country. That's about it for me. I mean, it makes it really simple and easy to do my previews for these games when I don't have to talk about Florida State's offense nor Notre Dame's defense too much. You know, I really don't have to do anything right now. It makes our job easier. And you just got to focus on one side of the ball because also, too, your defense can't give takeaways. And I think I harp on it a lot, but not a lot of people are talking about it. And they do when we see third down conversions from any team imaginable. We're going to see it against Charleston Southern for sure. This defense sucks. I don't think Florida State's defense is good. And we talked about some of these players that Dustin was naming earlier of some veterans that aren't playing well. They're sucky. They suck. So, I mean, defense sucks. Offense sucks. Shout out to Ryan Fitzgerald. There's my preview. Short and sweet.
Sounded like you had a little bit of a southern accent there.
Did I really?
For a second.
No, not really.
A little country. Did you like it, Dustin? Do you want me to talk to you like that?
Please don't. But, Notre Dame probably the best overall football team that Florida State is going to face this season. And, I know you can point back to that loss earlier in the year to Northern Illinois. But since then, I mean, they've been playing extremely well. In all of their other games, except for that upset loss, they've scored more points than Florida State has in a game this year. Logan, you pointed out the rushing stats, and, Florida State, over the last couple of years, it feels like they've really struggled when it comes to these dual threat quarterbacks, and you're going to get another one this weekend in Riley Leonard, who's got over 500 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground this season, and also completing a career high 66.2% of his passes, 8 touchdowns to 3 picks. I mean, 19 total touchdowns for him. You look at the most recent outing for Notre Dame, coming off a bye week, but before that they took on Navy, who was ranked at the time. They were up 31-7 at the half, and I mean, ended up dominating that matchup. And then defensively, it's not looking good if you're on Florida State's offense. Notre Dame, you gave out a couple of the stats, Logan, but 8th in total defense, 6th in turnovers forced. They've got 18 forced turnovers now in 8 games. 4th in passing defense, 4th in scoring defense. They do allow 126.8 rushing yards per game, but Florida State hasn't been able to run the ball effectively for most of the year. Then they've got a really strong guy on the defensive line, Howard Cross. He's got 5.5 tackles for loss and 4 sacks this year. I'm sure he'll be up in those numbers on Saturday night.
I'll just take it one step further just to keep piling on. I feel like their season really started after that Northern Illinois game. They started to figure some things out. The rushing attack got a little bit better. You mentioned the over 200 yards on the ground since the Northern, or in total, but since the Northern Illinois game, 235 rushing yards per game. Their defense is only allowing 11 yards per game, 11 points per game.
I want to say FSU's not going to have a yard.
No, 11 points per game. They're scoring over 42 points per game on offense. They've dominated just about everybody except Louisville, who made that game a little bit interesting. But even Louisville barely touched Northern Illinois' yardage output, only beat it by about 7 yards. That defense is playing much, much, much better since that game. If we're keeping it a buck, Florida State doesn't stand a single chance.
Yeah, Florida State's defense going to have to get prepared for Riley Leonard because also, too, they beat Riley Leonard in his pass uniform with the
sort
Blue
of.
Devils.
He was far from 100% in that game.
Yeah, dinged up. But so he's going to want to get his revenge, though,
Yeah.
nonetheless. And he's going to want to put on a good performance against Florida State. But,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, having all these yards, they have practically 3 running backs with a quarterback. I mean, it's kind of like a jacked up Daniel Jones because Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price.
Jeremiah Love, can I interrupt you real quick?
No.
He leads the team in rushing, obviously, but according to PFF, he's forced 47 missed tackles. So good luck to FSU secondary.
But between Love, Leonard, and their other running back, Jadarian Price, I know Logan was about to mention, all 3 of them are averaging at least 6.3 yards per carry.
So they get to face like a Trey Benson every play, practically. Because I'm not too. This game's gonna be close, but I'm like thinking that I can still speak like that, but I can't speak like that. I was about to say, I'm not worried about, I'm not worried about Notre Dame's passing game, but it's gonna come down the run game. I don't care what's gonna happen.
As long as they make it to the stadium.
Hope so. But yeah, there's no reason to keep on hammering right here. I mean, it just keeps on keeping on. I mean, we just keep on roasting where Florida State's at, and this won't be a game. Won't last long, but it's going to be hard to tackle these guys with those stats that y'all were just sharing with us. And it didn't look good there against North Carolina in that run game, and it's only going to get worse here. So on the road, night game, packed house. That's it. But let's go to some best bets because guess what, gentlemen? We went 3-0, baby. Finally, we were manifesting it.
Let's go.
We were manifesting it, and sure enough,
Florida State may not be winning, but we are.
Yep.
Well,
we are winning, baby.
We've matched their record, but we have a chance to get a win streak this week.
We can keep going. I might have to tail these.
And it would have been 4-0 if they would have let us bet anything on a Marion Hampton because we were taking the over no matter what it was.
Oh, we were rolling with that.
I would have had him as touchdown scorer too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. But yeah, I went 3-0 last week. Let's see if we can do it again. Actually, y'all start picking because I actually built one earlier.
Minus 7,000 money line for Notre Dame is absurd.
Minus 7,000, and the spread, I mean, is also just insanity to think of.
I would like to say I nailed it on the head when I looked at it on Sunday. It was 23.5, which is what I said it was going to be on the Instant Reaction podcast. So it's gone up a couple points since this weekend. Not that anybody's surprised by that.
Yeah, no, not either. Yeah, we went 3-0. We had FSU first drive punt. We had North Carolina's minus 2.5 spread, and then we had the under at 52.5 total points, which we altered that via your boy here. Thank you. How do we want? Let's go and go to the first drive. Florida State.
Yeah, give us the first drive punt drive same game parlay.
Oopsies.
I'm pretty sure. Nope. The drive same game parlay. There you go. What's that punt looking like? Minus 270.
Minus 270.
It's getting worse.
What in the hell, man? They know that we're taking away money, man.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Shoot. Well, let's add it in there.
I don't know about you guys, but I kind of like the over for this.
The over 42.5. I do think it's pretty small, and if we did see some of the defense not wanting to show their best effort, there could be some. It could be a high-scoring game for Notre Dame.
How does Notre Dame not get there on their own?
That's how I'm feeling. My Notre Dame score is over that.
Well, why don't we go now? Go to Notre Dame. You think they get to 34.5, or do we want to go to Notre Dame's
over?
Yeah, definitely take the Notre Dame points.
I've got the over. I've got the Notre Dame spread.
Can we take the Florida State total points under whatever it's at?
This is
Just
a
for that.
sad parlay, but hey, we're trying to make money.
Yeah. What's the Florida State total points at? Like 8.5.
7.5.
7.5.
Mm,
Do you want that? Ryan Fitzgerald, 3 field
That's-
goals?
I'm close here.
I am too. I am very close, but
I mean, it's plus 100. Let's see what it does. Ooh, plus 4. I had that in my parlay earlier. 8 points.
7.5. We suck.
You've got the over, and FSU just scored 11 points against a defense that gave up 70 to James Madison.
Listen, well,
I'm thinking
there
Ryan
was
Fitzgerald
some
night,
weird stuff
baby.
in the game. Yeah, that's
Well, they
How
make
cold
it-
is it going to be? Is that leg going to be cold up there?
Well, they make it to midfield.
I don't want to spoil my prediction.
They're not going to have a good punt return. They might have one good
Yeah.
kickoff return.
I don't want to spoil my prediction too much.
We've got to pick something. We're just limited though. There's not
No
we
touchdowns.
don't have player props or anything in here. It's
Well, why don't we do Notre Dame first drive touchdown?
Ooh, I don't hate that. So go back to the drive, same game parlay.
Let's see what it looks like.
Plus 150. I don't hate it.
That gives you some bump, yeah.
Yeah, I would take out the Florida State points.
And that won't hurt you that much. Oh, well.
Maybe it does. We got to find something else. What's the first half spread? 13.5.
I mean,
I feel
I'd
kind
be
of good
down.
about it.
I'd be down for that. I mean, if they're gonna put up that many points, it's gonna have to start in the first half.
Or just the overall spread if you don't have the minus 25.5 yet.
What does this do? Plus 455. Yeah, I don't know. This seems fine though. Notre Dame, first half, got to score 14 points. First drive result, offensive touchdown, over 34.5 for Notre Dame's total points. And then punt for the first drive result for Florida State. Let's see, $15,
This is a
68.
sad parlay.
It's only going to get worse. Are they even going to let us do bets for the
No.
Charleston Southern game?
They're definitely not.
I don't know what's going to be there, but yeah, that's going to do it there for our best bets. They're getting sadder and sadder and sadder, aren't they? Well, I say we do some score predictions.
You're up.
I am up. It's back turned around to me.
For the last time this year, we're at the top.
Yeah, this is the last roundabout that we're on. Florida State is going to lose this game. Yes, we do know that. I just am interested to see if this team is going to continue to show fight and show interest in it. And I don't know where the locker room's at completely, and I don't think there's some belief in what this whole entire staff has put together. I mean, we see it in the league. I don't put it fully how the Saints organization has looked this year and what they're going through. It's not at that magnitude, but I still think Mike has a grip on it. But there is going to be some guys that break through and show that they don't want to be out there Saturday night and an ass beating in the cold on the road. So I've got Florida State losing this game 43-9. 43-9.
I'm not too far off. I'm not going to lie to you. The Juice Cryer injury, we didn't really talk about it today. We talked about it more in the instant reaction. I think that's going to be a bigger loss than people might expect from just the base numbers, because he arguably was the hardest working player on the defense.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell he cared every snap and wanted to make an impact. I don't think we can say that for very many other people on that defense. And I think that's going to show in this game. I've got Florida State losing 45-6, and bold prediction: Florida State never enters the red zone.
Never enters the red zone. Dang it, that would not even be any sort of fun then. That would be even worse than what we saw.
Nothing about this team has been fun all year. Let's just call a spade a spade.
No, I mean, I know there's nothing to argue there, but I mean, man, I can't even get a chance at anything.
No.
Freak play. That's the one thing. There's no freak plays. There's no freak.
One of those field goal attempts is going to come from 57 yards.
Ooh, 57. Going to give some Ryan Fitzgerald some draft stock. Bump that shit up. I like it.
Well, Austin, I am very close
Again.
to your score. I don't have any hope for Florida State in this game. At this point, the offensive line's not going to get any better. They keep getting more beat up week by week. I think we could very well see a ninth different combination in 10 games on Saturday. We'll see how it goes. And then defensively, with the signs of quit that we saw against North Carolina, and you're facing another team that wants to pound the rock, I just don't see Florida State responding there in a positive way with where the season is currently at. So I think Notre Dame's going to run away with this one, and that's going to be apparent very early on. Florida State, they also haven't played good away from home all year. I mean, except for parts of that loss to Duke a couple weeks ago. But, I mean, for the most part, they've gotten blown out on the road. So I've got Notre Dame 44, Florida State 6.
Okay, we're tight. We're really close together.
I do want to say that my score was evolving throughout the show. Like, I'd written most of my preview and I put the score first and I had it 42-10. And just as the podcast goes, I'm like, no, I don't think Florida State's getting there. Let me bump it down a little bit. Like, Notre Dame's going to kind of run all over them. Let me bump it up a little bit. So
yeah,
it got 7 points worse in about an hour.
Yikes.
Yeah. Nothing I saw during practice this week makes me feel confident Florida State will score an offensive touchdown, unless you have something stupid happen like the Croman Hawk tush push, or just some crazy kind of thing that goes in your favor like that. But to me, it'll be more of the same.
Yep.
So enjoy the show.
I'll be enjoying Florida State basketball. That's what I'll be doing.
Hey, speaking of Florida State basketball, let's end off the show here with a win. Florida State beat Northern Kentucky 74-62. Two guys with 17 points, Taylor Bowen and Jameer Watkins, leading the night for the Seminoles. I was talking to you in the production meeting, VZ. It's kind of fun. It's only been one game, of course, but it was an entertaining, fun game to watch.
They were energetic. They played together on defense. There was effort. A lot of things we haven't been able to say about Florida State the last few years. And obviously it's the first game of the year, but Northern Kentucky is a solid mid-major team. They've got a really funky defense, so I'm not surprised that the scoring is what it was, but I thought they did a good job of reading it. They did a good job of seeing those lob passes over the top behind the defense. They've got some fun playmakers with Jameer Watkins and Daquan Davis. They've got some cheat codes with length and Taylor Bowen and Alir Malouk. They're kind of fun. They're kind of spunky. I like it.
Okay. So there's some interest to where some FSU fans, don't have high expectation, don't have crazy expectations, but enjoy what you got. Enjoy what you have right now. And there's a lot of building to still do.
The crazy thing is I went in the game saying just force a turnover rate north of 20%. They'll be all right. And they forced a turnover rate of like 30.1%. It was just an absurd number. And a lot of people are like, but the rebounding, they got out rebounded. I'm like, they forced a turnover on 30% of the possessions. Like, of course, the rebounding numbers are going to be a little bit skewed when they're not getting some of the defensive rebounds that Northern Kentucky was getting. But overall, I was pretty I was encouraged. The offense needs to be a little bit better, especially the three-point shooting. I thought they got good looks, and those will go down eventually. But I like what I saw in the first game.
Yeah, I thought they didn't get off to the hottest start, but then, you started to see them gel as that first half went on. Jameer Watkins looked like Jameer Watkins. I mean, that dunk he had early on was just absolutely
what a way to start the season. Stealing a poster like that. I mean, it doesn't get better.
Yeah, and he was already so close to the rim, like to be able to get that lift from right there. And I know he had the alley-oop later in the game, but I thought that one, the explosion with where he was at on the court and with a defender right in front of him, I mean, was really insane to watch. And seeing some of those newcomers, definitely some flashes there from the true freshmen. It's going to be interesting to see how they continue to grow throughout the season. Jerry Dang, I didn't know he had a jumper like that.
He's got a strap.
Smooth, quick. Yeah, for a guy who's, 6'10"?
6'9", I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, either way, a big man who has a stroke like that. I mean, if he gets hot throughout this season, it's going to be fun to watch.
You don't see people with his length with that smooth of a form. Usually the people with long arms, it's it's kind of wonky. It takes a little while to get up there. And that thing is quick and it goes in.
Wow.
Surprised me, and it's a very smooth jumper. So that's a guy that I think I'm definitely looking forward to watch. And obviously Taylor Bowen showing some flashes, Chandler Jackson playing some really good defense out there. There are some pieces here for this team. It's going to be interesting to see how they can build some chemistry out throughout this non-conference slate.
They've got a good opportunity to get another win on Saturday. We've alluded to it already, but they play at 7 p.m. on Saturday. It's kind of a semi-away game because they're playing Rice in Houston, but it's not on Rice's campus. It's at the Houston Rockets Arena. Rice isn't very good. They were picked to finish last in the American Conference by a pretty wide margin. But they're coached by Rob Lanier, who was coaching SMU last year when SMU beat Florida State in Tallahassee. So he knows how to beat Florida State. We'll see what happens there, but I'd expect FSU to win decently.
Hey, we could have just a quick little instant recap of FSU basketball too, and our instant reaction to Florida State versus Notre Dame.
I'm here for it.
Hey, this is why you're here. I'd hear the spear, baby. But yeah, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Hear the Spear. We're going to be here on Saturday evening, late, as all get out, recapping Florida State versus Notre Dame. So we'll see you Saturday night. And then we're back at it next Wednesday for Florida State's bye week. And then they're going to finish off the season against Charleston Southern. And, of course, the Florida Gators, who showed some damn fight against Georgia. It's going to be interesting to see if Florida State, first off, let's just get to Charleston Southern first before I just continue to go into the end of the season. But that's going to do it. Enjoy the rest of y'all's weekend. As always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. Hit that like button. Appreciate y'all still hanging out with us, even though the season is at an all-time low. We still enjoy coming on here, hanging out, and talking some Florida State football and going through whatever in the hell we're going through right now. But the show goes on. Always continues. Y'all have a great weekend. Peace.